Hi, welcome to the Elevating Aesthetics podcast. I'm Brittany Perez. I'm Courtney Burke, and today we have our guest Andrew Martin, 2 times Forbes Financial Advisor of the Year and 17 times Financial Advisor in Pensacola. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
One reason Pensacola got my start in the industry 13 years or so ago, and kind of what led me to the industry is I took a personal finance course in college, and quickly realized this is all very applicable stuff that I use for the rest of my life, right? And I've never learned this stuff before. So first of all, it was an elective class, which is a whole conversation in itself. And I was like, why is this the first time I'm learning any of this? And then of course started, found it super interesting because it was very useful, and started talking to my parents about stuff that I was learning, assuming that they knew some of these things, and kind of discovered this is news to y'all too, as we're talking to other adults, which I guess I'm not an adultier adults.
Are we the adults now?
We're the adultier adults. And so found out most people don't know these things, and I feel like all these things are very useful to know. And so I was like, all right, well, there's clearly a market for this, and I found it interesting, and I enjoyed it, and it just kind of led me into the industry. So a little background on how I got started in the industry.
And you do things a little bit different because most financial advisors take a piece off the top, and you do it a little bit differently. So why do you do it from a hourly or per consult perspective?
Yeah, so you want a sweater?
Oh, it's fine. I'm gonna both talk to you while you're here. That was part of the deal.
All right. Yeah, so I think there's a very large disparity between what the average person wants from their financial planner or advisor and what the majority of the industry currently provides. So I think people want good, thorough, unbiased advice that isn't contingent upon them buying something from the advisor or investing money with the advisor or what have you. So most of the industry works in such a way that that's basically how the advisor gets paid. Either you have a bunch of money that you're willing to give the advisor to manage for you, or buy a product from them, or some combination of those things. And so it leaves a lot of people unserved or underserved, and particularly younger people, business owners, things like that. That younger people, even if you had $1 million in a 401k or something like that, the advisor can't take custody of it and manage it for you. So you're not a client for them. Or if you're a business owner and want to invest in your business or real estate or other things, then again, you're not really a client for the advisor. So we charge a flat fee, so we kind of created models, if you will, or offerings, if you want to call them that. And so based on kind of a client intake standpoint, get some information from them and figure out, all right, this model, based on the information that you gave us, this model is going to be the best fit for you. And in this model, we know what type of planning we'll be doing, how much time we'll be involved, about how many meetings, and so on. And so we can just charge a flat fee instead of charging hourly and things like that, because I think charging hourly disincentivizes efficiency, because you came to me for results.
Yeah.
You don't care how long it took me to give you the results. You just want the results. And so charging hourly, you get into charging for email and charging for, I know where. Yeah. And so I know of a CPA, I don't know the CPA person, but I know of a CPA who charges anytime he's thinking about a client's case.
Interesting. I need that model, and I wouldn't have to work more than 5 hours a week.
So I'll think about putting talks in your
Right. Right. So it's interesting because you are selling knowledge and advice and problem solving stuff. So you can make the argument if you're him that I'm working on your case by thinking about it and coming up with a solution. So I see that, but also that's ridiculous, right? So, so we charge a flat fee. So it's as transparent as we can imagine making it, or that's the best way we've come up with thus far. So that way, people know exactly what to expect, exactly what the cost will be. There's no bait and switch or there's just no. It's as transparent and upfront as we possibly make.
And I like that. And so I personally, for my business, use Andrew as well for Mulan method and all of the things. And I feel like too, from an integrity perspective, you know that whatever you're saying and doing is for your client's best interest. So in saying that, what is the difference in having a fiduciary?
Yeah. So
I don't even know what that is. So for those who don't even know what that is, explain on that.
Great question. Yeah. So a fiduciary just means you have a legal obligation to put the client's interest above your own, which seems like, I thought everybody would do that, or you would hope they would. In the industry, there's the suitability standard and the fiduciary standard. So suitability standard is somebody who isn't a fiduciary, and basically they just have to prove that whatever solution or product or whatever is suitable for you. Whether it's the best solution for you or not, they don't have to prove it. They just have to prove that it's suitable for you. The fiduciary standard is basically you have to prove that whatever advice I'm giving you, I'm able to prove is the best possible solution, and you have all the data and everything to basically prove that if audited, which typically our files are audited every year. Right?
So when someone's looking for a financial advisor, how would they know if you were or were not a fiduciary?
So it really comes down to a licensing standpoint, and I will say it's really just not as cut and dry as that, because there's a lot of people who are legally fiduciaries, which again, some of which I know and some of which you hear about, who may or may not be directly following the fiduciary standard, right? So it really is. I do encourage people to have a list of questions that they ask their advisor before deciding to work with them. I do think that interviewing multiple advisors or planners is a worthwhile practice, because not just, and you should ask, are you a fiduciary? How do you get paid? How many times will I meet with you? What else sorts of services or do you provide? What all will you do for me? Is it just investments, or is it tax planning? Is it business planning? Is it this or that or whatever? Right? So how would you work with somebody like me? What should I expect? Are there any other fees that I should be concerned with? But really, are you a fiduciary and how do you get paid? Will kind of help answer a lot of these questions. But again, I still think you should interview several, because just a certain advisor's mindset or perspective or philosophies or just temperament and personality may or may not jive with you as much as another one does. And so this is a relationship, right? So we'll be spending a certain amount of time with each other. So you should be able to get along with that person. Sure. You should kind of be on the same, have the same philosophies and such as that. So I do not recommend going with the first person you meet necessarily. Unless you really get, good vibes from them. Yeah. But I do think it's worth being intentional, being deliberate, and being discerning when deciding to work with. Because
Courtney's favorite word,
discerning.
Yeah.
Because just like any other world, there's a world of difference between somebody who's great at what y'all do and somebody who's just so. And that can make a big difference on how you look walking around, right? So,
everyone can do talks, but it is an art. So
that's right. So same thing with this world. There's a world of difference between great planners or advisors and less than great planners or advisors, and working with somebody who isn't great could end up costing you way more than a great one would cost you.
Yes, right? Definitely. So Cora had a question about saving. So when to save, when to spend. So when would you save versus when would you put money in investments?
How much? I don't even know. So how would you, if you just got your paycheck, how much of that would you recommend that it would go in your savings account versus your checkings account? When to start investing? How do you invest?
So first thing I'll say is prioritize saving first. So pay yourself first, because a lot of
Like
people,
what percentage would you say?
great question. But just the thought of
Mhm.
saving first,
Right.
prioritizing saving first, because a lot of people will try to save what's left over at the end of the month,
Mhm.
and there's generally not a lot left over. It's just like when you get a pay raise, you're like, oh, yippee, and then in a short period of time, you're like, I don't know where that extra money went, because now we're gotten used to spending it, right? So,
Did you know you got a raise? Did you tell on your paycheck? Or did you just keep
No.
spending it?
all right, well, that's
Wing
definitely
case.
one. Yeah. So,
This is a great podcast.
so prioritize saving first, and then you're gonna, if you ask different people, you're gonna get different answers, but typically 10 to 20%, somewhere in there is gonna be a typical. A lot of people will, let's say they have a 401k they work and it matches 4 or 5% or whatever, and they're gonna put that in to get the match, and they're usually not gonna save much else and hope that that gets them to where they're trying to go. The 10 to 20% is a very general answer. The right answer is, depending on your timeline, your goals, and what you're trying to accomplish, and all those things will determine what percentage you should be saving or investing, and where that money should go, and so on. Because some people are getting a later start than others, and they can save more. Some people are getting an earlier start than others, but maybe they want to retire earlier, right? So some people want to retire at 60 or 65, if that's their plan. Some people want to retire yesterday, and so as soon as possible.
This one's like more like 50.
And if that's the goal, that's not generally an early retirement age, and I think people are.
So whenever you're retired, you're living off your savings.
Yeah. So you have to keep in mind, if you're starting work at 25 and you want to retire at 50, so that means you're saving or investing for 25 years. And then you're going to be living off that money. If you retire at 50, let's just assume you're going to live to be 90. So you save for 25 years to live off that money for 40 years. So if you're saving 5 or 10%, even if you're getting matched on part of that or whatever, okay, like, and again, it's invested and it's making money on those things, but that money's going to last you potentially 40 years. So I think people kind of drastically underestimate kind of what it will take to retire the way that they want to. And it's not what age. People say, oh, when I get X age, right? When I get 65, I'm going to retire at 65. It's like, well, are you financially prepared? Are you able? And
What standard of living do you want to maintain? You know, at least when you're older, yes, like maybe you have your house paid off, you have a paid off car, you want to travel, but do you want to travel? Do you want to enjoy your retirement?
there's a lot of expenses.
How do people retire? Oh my God.
Well,
That's a good question.
Oh my
Especially
gosh.
because what was the goal? Like, let's say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the goal to have at retirement. Like some people like thought $200,000 would be enough to retire on, and now we're saying millions.
Oh my gosh.
so that was going to be the next point is a lot of people will ask, how much money do I need to have saved to retire? There's a lot of caveats.
On top of
there.
everyday living,
Mhm.
like you also have to live too and save for retirement.
Oh, yeah, certainly balance, because we're saving for a day that people never promised us, right?
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be eating ramen noodles a day to save for a day that,
Right.
so there's a balance to that. But instead of focusing on how much money do I need to have saved or invested, what's most important is how much income do you need in retirement on an after-tax basis, and how much income will these savings or investments generate for you? Because, as a rather egregious example, we worked with a gentleman, sold a business, walked away with about $16 million, is mid-late 50s, 57, I'm sharing this with permission. And so to you and I, the average normal person, is thinking, all right, well, if I'm close to 60,
Sit.
yeah, walking away with 16 million after taxes, everything's done, and we're thinking like, oh, this guy, he should be doing okay. Well, this gentleman needs, quote unquote, $1 million a year to live the lifestyle he's accustomed to. So it's hard to make $16 million stretch for potentially
16 years.
40 years, maybe, right?
Yeah, we only have 16 years of 16 million.
Right. So, and so it's hard to make 16 million stretch for potentially 40 years based on $1 million a year after tax.
Wow.
So the point is not the money you have saved or invested is important, but what's most important is what your retirement income needs or wants are. Then kind of working backwards on how much do I need to have saved or invested to produce that income to give me the lifestyle that I want. So it's kind of, I think people look at it backwards, like they focus on the dollar amount they need to have saved, and again they think in today's dollars where inflation, right? So as you mentioned, so all of us here thinking, oh, $1 million is a lot of money, and it is. But in 30 years, $1 million isn't going to be what $1 million is worth today. It's going to be
That's
worth
bizarre.
Worth so much less. And Andrew is a huge proponent of profit first. That's where I first learned about that book. And so that's what he's saying about like pay yourself first. And I guess my question is, when you say pay yourself first, would you identify that as paying yourself and setting it aside for savings, or would you say pay yourself first and enjoy your money?
Pay yourself first in the form of savings or investment for some sort of later date or goal, whether that be retirement or buying a house or whatever it is.
And maybe a smaller percentage, like 4 or 5% to like enjoy throughout depending on your financial situation, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, as long as the amount you're saving or investing and where that money's going, once your retirement planning is kind of shored up based on your goals, spend the rest if you want, right? Or you can take the approach of, well, that helps me reach this goal, but if I save more, then I can retire earlier. I can work at some point. We all want to reach the point where we're working because we want to, not because we have to.
Yes.
That is completely different, right? Financial freedom is about money, it's about owning your time, right? So if we have enough money, so if our goal is to retire at 60, but financially we reach that point at 50, and then we choose to work longer, great. You're showing up because you want to, not because you have to. You can tell everybody to kiss your butt. You know what I mean? So yeah. So I mean, you're showing up with a completely different. I'll just say for the clients who are nearing retirement, oh, I'm not retiring in 5 years. It's like, all right, well, you want us to see if you can retire today, and run the numbers and stress test and do all stuff, and basically prove that, like, yeah, if you chose to retire today, you're fine. In all scenarios, you're fine. For the people who were able to do that for, which is everybody. And if they choose to work longer, I just will say, so we did this for a gentleman that worked at this job for decades. This was a career job, and his plan was to retire in 2 or 3 years. This was a handful of years ago, and so we ran the numbers to show that he could retire today. And ran the numbers, did all the stuff, and then saw him, I think, 6 months or so later for a review. And I mean, he looked years younger. I mean, legitimately. And we made a comment, and he was like, you're not the first person to tell me that. And his wife kind of chimed in and was like, yeah, I think so too, and all this stuff. I mean, visibly, he looked years younger.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to borrow your sweat when I got sweating on these topics.
Well,
I'm like,
Well, and I think too, for me, like the reason why I kind of ask that is when people think about like saving money, they think about, I just had this conversation with one of our team members. They think about saving money in your savings account where you make 0.001% interest. And at minimum, we should be putting our money in a high yield savings account at minimum. But really, our future goal is to have money set aside that's creating dividends, money that's going to pay us, instead of just keeping money in a savings account. So can you talk through kind of how you encourage people to shift their thinking from putting money away in an old school savings account for a rainy day versus actually making your money work for you?
yeah, we often learn through, our parents or grandparents, something like that. So like, what worked for our parents and grandparents worked well for them may not work as well for us, right? So in our grandparents' days, the bank was a place to put your money,
Yep.
right? That was,
And they had Social Security to rely on, which most of us
and they had pensions,
and pensions.
yeah, all that stuff. So again, we're kind of on our own, and all that's going to be on us. The bank is the safest place to guarantee lose money,
Yeah.
right? Because if inflation is on average 3%, let's call it a long-term historical average of the last 100 years or so, it's like 3 or 4 or something like that. So let's call it 3%. So if you're getting 0.0 nothing in the bank, you're losing 3% per year. On paper, the dollar amount doesn't change, so it doesn't look like you're losing 3% per year, but the purchasing power of that dollar.
In your savings account?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm doing it wrong.
Well, and I'm not saying don't have
Oh
money.
my
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying don't have
Like
money.
a rainy day fund is one thing to
Yeah.
cover a few months of expenses.
Yep. Have an
But
emergency
even a
fund.
high yield savings account, you could pull out of the same day. So it's like, why not make 4.5% of your money?
Yep.
It's just as liquid as a regular savings account.
Yep. So banks today will give you 4 or 5% on high yield savings accounts. If you can get that. Right. So yeah, you just want to be mindful. And so for younger people, I think it is small things because we have time on our side, right? So small inefficiencies, or if we can tweak these inefficiencies and make them more efficient. So it could be how you're managing debt, it could be how you're saving or investing, it could be any number of things. But tweaking these inefficiencies, these small changes, it's usually not everybody looks for a silver bullet. It's generally not a silver bullet. It's generally not one thing. Like, if you do this thing, this will give you financial freedom. It's generally not that.
That's what most people want from me. They're like, just tell me that one thing.
Yes. Yeah. There's got to be a secret. Man. Tell me the secret. Yeah, that's not that. It's usually a multitude of little things. Where you tweak this, change that, tweak this, change that. If you do this and you stay consistent with it, these small changes compounded over a multi-decade period of time, it's shocking, even to me still. But certainly the people when we run these numbers, like, all right, here's your base facts. So like, here's you now. We're going to continue on the path you're on, do things what you're doing. Here's how this turns out. If you tweak this, change that. It's just little things. Like, it's usually just minor tweaks for the most part, most of the time. And here's these numbers reran over the same period of time.
Wild.
A lot of times it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars difference, just by small tweaks compounded over a long period of time. So
And Courtney, being 24, has time on her side. And so compounding interest, what is compounding interest?
means your money's making money on the money you make.
Yes.
Right.
So if she starts investing now at a younger age, that 10-year gap, like if she didn't start investing until she's 34, it could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So right now is the time, even if it's $100 a month, right? To start putting money into investments.
Yeah, so make that really simple. Like if you invested $100 into something, $100 is your money that you put in. And let's say it made 10%, so it made $10. And now you have $110 invested, so it made another 10%, that's $11, right? So you made that money on money that you didn't, right? Your money's making money on the money you made, right? So you didn't have to work for that money. Like working is trading your time for money. Investing is trading money for time, right? It's turning your money into
That is so
money.
good. That's exactly what it is. Huh?
Yep.
It's bringing up.
Yep.
Yeah. Moving to more of from a personal standpoint to a business standpoint. So me being a small business owner, what is the best way for me to evaluate the financial health of my business? Like, what am I looking for to know if I'm doing a good job?
Part of it, you just kind of can feel and know, right? It's not necessarily numbers on paper, but you just kind of feel and know. So a lot of business owners will say, my CPA tells me we're making money. My CPA tells me we're profitable. Like, I see the dollars, I see the numbers on paper, but I don't know where that money goes. Like, and I don't have it. Where is this money where is this profit that my CPA tells me we have? And I don't know where it goes. So a lot of times it's, if you're not able to consistently generate profit and have stable and predictable cash flow, generally speaking, those are the things. If cash flow is all over the place, which for some businesses, that's just kind of, that's just kind of the way it is. But to the extent that you can stabilize and predict the cash flow will help a lot. And so there's different ways to do that, whether it's depending on your business, right? Sometimes you can have things where you have like recurring revenue. So there is a difference between recurring revenue and reoccurring revenue. Reoccurring revenue is people that come in and they might come in every month to do your thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Buy your product or buy your service or whatever it is. That's reoccurring, right? Because they are coming back every month. But it's different than recurring. So think of like subscriptions and subscription models and things like that. Memberships, things like that. So think of like car washes. So car washes, everybody sees car washes popping up all over the place. You're like, how many car washes do we need? Well, they're very generally profitable, stable cash flow, very sellable businesses. And if you go to a car wash, it's like, and I'm making up these numbers, but it's like, all right, well, I can spend $30 on one car wash, I can spend $20 on one car wash, or I can spend $30 on a monthly membership and get unlimited car washes. So like, all I got to do is come twice a month and it pays for itself. Well, the car wash would much prefer you sign up for a monthly membership, even if you're coming
Twice a year.
Yeah.
If you come.
They might be coming all the time, right? So, because it's a subscription model, it's stable, predictable cash flow, and when they go to from a valuation standpoint, and when they go to sell it, it is much more. You're able to sell it for a higher multiple. It's way more valuable to a potential buyer.
and that's what for our industry, from an investor standpoint, that's why they want memberships, because they have that secured income because people are signing contracts. And so they know they're going to have that money for 6 months or 12 months or whatever it is.
So like, I think it was last year or year before something, I just remember thinking, because it was like in August and it rained like every day that August. And I just remember thinking like, all right, well, for the people who don't have a membership to this car wash, they're not going to go get their car washed because I know it's going to rain every daggone day.
Yeah.
But for the people who have a membership, they're paying that membership regardless.
Yep.
So they know that they can pay the payroll.
So you're telling me I got to cancel my car membership.
Your car
I have one and I actually don't ever get my car.
And they know that too. So I mean, it's the same thing with like Planet Fitness.
I was just about to say that because I pay Planet Fitness every month and I go twice a year.
So they know if the subscription is low enough, you're generally not going to come. And you know how I mean, there's a whole science to it. They don't want the lunk alarm. They don't want people who actually lift weights to go.
Yes.
They want people who come. They'll do the little pizza party thing, and they'll come. You know
We
what I mean?
were just talking about that today.
Yeah. So,
No judgment zone.
Exactly. Because they know, like, all right, well, if it's small enough, and if we make it hard enough for you to cancel this, then you're like, it's just $10 a month, and you're just going to keep paying it. And each location has, I forget how many on average, but I mean, it's thousands of members per location. Wow. And on average,
We're one of them.
Yeah. And on
Are you
average,
one of them?
No. But on average, like a small percentage of those people actually show up on a regular basis.
Because it's a few dollars to them, and they don't
Exactly.
and they don't want to cancel it because then they have to pay the cancellation fee and then pay the initiation fee and all that.
And just even if you gotta call somebody, like my wife would ever like, I gotta call and talk to somebody.
No,
I'll just pay the $10 a month. You know what I mean? So like, just any businesses know if you got to take extra steps to do something, you're not going to do it. And just like Amazon has it figured out, we're getting off topic, I know, but just like Amazon has it figured out, the more times you have to press a button to purchase something, with each press of a button to purchase something, the likelihood of you actually purchasing it goes down significantly each time.
The Amazon one-click gets me all the time.
I know. I'm like, geez, order confirmation. I didn't even know I ordered that.
And it's so weird because it's like, psychologically, it's like, all right, well, I wanted this thing, but 3 clicks, I don't want it that bad. You know?
Or
like,
if you have to pay for
happens?
shipping. No.
Exactly.
No, I already paid for Amazon Prime.
Exactly.
But that's why that works so well, because it's free shipping even though you're paying for it yearly instead of each transaction.
So I'll say this, as far as getting
dog,
back to,
we're getting hustled.
Yeah. Well,
I have gotten hustled.
They know the psychological tricks.
I didn't think I could get hustled, but I have gotten hustled.
Every time you walk into the grocery store where they have things laid out, they know.
I like my coupons, my buy one get one though. That ain't hustling. That's actually a deal.
Bothers me off topic also is we pay taxes to pay taxes on the taxes we already pay taxes on.
Oh yeah, we don't own our home.
You still have to pay property taxes. I just found that out a couple of years ago. Once your house is paid off, you still have to pay property taxes, even though you
and try not
own
paying
it.
your property taxes though. You don't live there.
I rent
it.
You're renting it from them.
What were you gonna say?
I was just bitching about taxes because if you pay 25% in taxes, that means you work 3 months out of the year for the government.
But then after I've already paid taxes on this money, then I go to the store and I pay taxes on the product that I bought, and then they pay taxes.
You pay to register your car, which is a tax.
We need to boycott taxes. How do we do that?
I think our founding fathers would have already tarred and feathered somebody.
Cheers.
Yeah. To tarring and
It
feathering.
was never meant to be that way, right?
Never. No, so when they first came out in, I think, 1913, when the first federal income tax was created, it was to help to pay for World War I, and it was said it was going to be temporary.
Wow.
And here we are
1913. Interesting.
Here we are hundreds
More
of
than
years
100
later.
years later.
And it was very low. That's
how they got us.
Yeah.
20, 30%.
And over half of the years that we've had a federal income tax, the highest tax bracket has been 70% or more.
What I would be like, I quit.
It's been as high as 94%.
That's insane. Could you imagine working and then giving 94% of your paycheck to someone?
Why?
And then that 6% you still have to pay taxes when you go and use the money.
Jeez.
Okay, so I do have one more question that I think would help people, because I feel like when we're talking about business valuation or like the value of the business, how do you know if you're doing well? We get confused sometimes on gross profit versus net profit. So businesses may look really profitable because they're grossing all this money, but their actual net profit is very low. So what's the difference between gross and net profit?
Yeah. So generally, so like if you're, so that this is a key point. So a lot of people don't know how to accurately charge or appropriately charge for their product or service. So they'll, as an example, let's say that, let's say you're a contractor or something, and it's very easy for y'all, right? So all right, I'm paying this person to do this thing, and I know the product for this is X amount, and so if we're charging $1,000 for this, and then let's say between paying the person who's providing the service, right, the injector, let's say, and then paying for the product, let's say, I'm making up these numbers, let's say that cost is $500. So this $500 is my gross profit. I charged $1,000. It cost me $500 to do this, and then I'm keeping $500 of gross profit. So that's how much it costs to do that thing. Of that $500 that you grossed, you still have rent or mortgage, insurances, office staff,
employees.
Right. You have all these utilities and things like that. You have all these things that
practice.
Exactly. You have all these other things that have to come out of that $500. So it looks like you made $500, but you didn't.
Really, you made 30.
Right. Well, and so a lot of people run their business kind of on a financial knife's edge because they don't know how to appropriately charge for their product or service, because they don't know how to factor in. It's very easy to factor in, I'm doing this thing and it costs me between my cost of goods sold, which is labor and materials, cost me this amount. And so I'm going to charge this. And that's an easy calculation. Then you have all these other things that have to come out of that then they struggle. They're like, well, I hope I do enough of these things to pay for these other things, and then I'm going to live off of what's left over. So that's generally what happens, is that business owners will, income comes in, they're paying their expenses, hopefully they're putting money aside for taxes, and then the business owners generally living off of what's left over, which could be a lot, could be a little, and they're not saving appropriately. They're not, they have a very hard time calculating how to factor in all these kind of fixed monthly expenses, or kind of, these things that don't go into the cost of goods sold.
Or things that break down too, things that are unexpected, or for us who, like, we get a new device and then so we have an extra $4,000 a month payment, and like factoring in those things as well. And I think in our industry, people get really device heavy because we want the new shiny thing, and we get all these things and we're not using them enough to really produce the revenue.
All for spending $4,000 a month on something, if that thing that you're spending $4,000 a month for makes you significantly more, right? If that will increase revenue by 8 or 10,000, well, then spending $4,000 to make an extra 8 or 10 grand, assuming all the numbers, just on a conceptual basis, well, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Because you don't want to just break even.
Oh, no.
Because for these, like a device, a handpiece for a device is anywhere from $12,000 to $40,000. So say you're just breaking even or barely over, like let's say you do $8,000 a month, with the device, and then you break a handpiece. Well, okay, take this $40,000, and on top of that, you have to pay $12,000 a year for warranty. So like people don't calculate those yearly or unexpected expenses in, and they get over their heads with devices. And that's, I think, a lot of times what causes med spas to shut down, is because they don't really have anyone to give them advice. And a lot of people also don't realize that 5 to maybe 10% of your gross revenue is maybe what an owner takes home. Like, people see all the dollars, but it's really closer to 5% of what you take home. And I've talked to a lot of financial people in the med spa industry, and they basically say, when you're paying your employees, all of your employees as a whole, you cannot pay more than 25% of your gross profit for every single person that's in your building. Otherwise, you're going to not have a sustainable business. So what I see sometimes, and I'm not being negative, but you have, team members that don't understand the industry, and they want 30, 40, 50% off the top. And the reality is that if you do that as a business owner, you'll only be able to employ that person for a couple of years because your business is going to shut down. And so it's unfortunate, because you have people that they want to do a good job and they want to be a provider, but they don't really understand the financial impact that paying that high is going to have on the long-term success of the business.
Yeah, it is, and it's tough for the employee because they don't see all the things that the business owner sees, and they don't experience it. So even if it's tried to explain, I was there for our children's birth. I saw it. I witnessed it. I will never understand what that's like from a woman's perspective, right?
Right.
So I can try as I might to understand it. I never will. Right. Until I've gone through it.
Until you do it.
Yeah. Which is impossible, right? But so same thing with an employee. It's like, until they experience it. So there's a lot of people that, are employees, go to try to own a business and then kind of quickly find out that it's not as easy as maybe they thought it was. And to that point, I think there's a lot of people in this industry and a lot of other industries that start as employees and they think, I can do this for myself and I'm going to keep all the money myself. And I'm working and the business owner is getting all this extra money and all this stuff, kind of like what you're saying. And they go start a business. And just because, even if they're super talented at what they do, just because you're very good at what you do does not mean you should start a business doing that thing, because there's a world of difference between being great at whatever it is you do and being a great business owner. Like I always use the baker. For some reason, I use a baker or bakery as an example. You can be the best baker in the world. That doesn't mean you should open a bakery. You would be better off not knowing anything about baking and being a very astute business owner and opening a bakery than being a great baker and not knowing anything about business and opening a bakery. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Be way
They're
better
two
off.
totally different things.
Two totally different.
You were talking about that last week or something.
Yeah, I was, because if you even think of it from, because I've learned so much. Like I thought I knew a lot because I've been in the industry so long, and I knew, like, in hindsight, I knew that much.
Sure.
Like it's a wild difference in being an entrepreneur and a business owner than it is being an injector. And I love it and I love business. And so I'm super invested and interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
But not everyone realizes that they are two different things, even as far as like, keeping skincare inventory on the shelves. Like you really don't realize, like, okay, let's just say I made $100,000 in a month. Well, I purchased $60,000 worth of injectable product. I just purchased $15,000 worth of skincare product. And then you're paying your malpractice, your medical director and all that. And so while you do make a high gross monthly, your actual net is so low that it's different than what you would expect, because the ultimate thing is you're never going to stop having the monthly reoccurring injectables. You're never going to stop having the monthly reoccurring skincare products you have to buy. And so I think med spa, people that want to own a med spa need to understand that there's always going to be those expenses.
Yeah, and I have a client not in this industry, but he bought a building, his first building that he bought, which is a big step for him, and it's going to allow him the room to grow and all the stuff. It's a great move. But when he first bought it last year, the insurance on it was like $6,800 for the year. And, calculating all that, he could do that. It was a big, It was still a big move for him. And then he gets the renewal, and it was going to be $40,000 a year for that same building for the insurance. Anyways, he got it down to, he shopped it out and got it to like 20 or something like that. But still, it went from $6,800 to $20,000. You know what I mean?
And that can happen. That's kind of what's scary for me too, just in, as for malpractice, as example. I've seen people getting quotes, because ours is about $12,000 a year, so about $1,000 a month. And the malpractice, they have such control over our industry because they can double that at any time. And like, what are you going to do? You have to have malpractice.
You have to have toilet paper.
Yeah.
Y'all can increase toilet paper all you want. We gotta have it. Gotta have gas in your car.
Actually, this is way off topic, but I just saw something about grocery stores and how they use the pandemic as an excuse to increase their prices. But then whenever prices came back down, they never actually brought their prices back down.
Oh, they never come back down.
And there's some huge type of, I wouldn't call it a lawsuit, but there's a huge investigation going on now with like grocers and like how they're cheating the public because they, anyways.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, and so I think kind of on the business owner versus self-employed thing, this is a conversation we have with a lot of business owners kind of, kind of right off the bat sometimes, is trying to gauge, because there's basically two ways to be a business owner. You can be self-employed, where you work this job, you hire other people to help you with this job, but basically you're self-employed.
Right.
Because like the business is you are the business can't function without you, all those things. So it's never statistically 80-ish% of businesses never sell. Of the ones that sell, there's a small percentage of those. I want to say it's like 3 to 6% or something. It's a super small percentage of businesses that actually sell for anywhere close to what the business owner wants to get or thinks it's worth or whatever. And I think the reason is, from observation and experience, most business owners, the business lives in here, and it's not a valuable or sellable business because if the business is you, it's not very sellable. Nobody wants it because once you leave the business,
It's gone.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that because they have a business entity open and they have employees and that they own a business, and on paper they do, but it's not an asset. They are self-employed and they hire other people to help them with this job, but it's a job.
Yep.
And so if that is the case, then you need to realize that that's what you're doing and either change what you're doing, or like I met with a gentleman a while back and kind of was having this conversation. He was like, I don't want to do all this stuff to like build this into a sellable business. Like I like what I do. I have one helper. It's fine. That's what this is what I enjoy doing. And I just don't want to do all the stuff to make it. And I'm like, well, that's great. But then you need to know that you can't bank on the value of the business being part of your retirement plan because there is none,
right,
or very little. So then you need to take the income that this job is giving you and carve off some of it to save and invest for retirement and invest it in something else, because that's the only way you're going to retire. So I think a lot of business owners have, again, built this business that isn't really an asset, thinking they're going to sell it, so they didn't put money aside or not enough, or they just didn't prepare, hoping they could cash it out and get a big payday and sail off into the sunset, and they're extraordinarily disappointed when it doesn't work that way. Or, of course, you go the other route to build it into a business that can run without you, and you have a good team, and stable, predictable cash flow, and an owner's manual or SOPs, and various things to build it into a valuable, sellable business that ultimately you can hopefully sell and cash in on one day. So that's kind of our message to business owners is getting and keeping a business what we call sale ready. Even if you never plan to sell it,
yep,
because having a sale ready business makes it less dependent upon you, which no business owner went into business to be a slave to their business.
No.
For the most part, at least a big reason why we did it is for freedom.
Time freedom.
Yeah. And they never end up getting that. They can't take vacations, or if they do, they're glued to their phone, or they're worried about what they're going to come back to, or
me.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of, it's a lot. It's most business owners, and it's not something that you can just flip a switch and do that. Like it takes time to build it.
Yep.
But having sale-ready business makes it more enjoyable to own, makes it more profitable and well-ran, and all those things. And even if you never plan to sell it, it'd just be more enjoyable to own and more profitable and all those things by having a sale-ready business. And then generally, businesses don't sell on the business owner's timeline. You're either going to get an unsolicited offer that you weren't expecting, and everything's for sale, right? For the right price.
For the right price.
Yeah. Or number 2, there's a health event or death of an owner that needs to be sold. Or number 3, you might think, I got another 10 years in me. You get 5 years into that 10 years, and you go, you know what? Bump this. I'd sell this thing yesterday if I could. And
Bump this.
Yeah, it's either ready or it's not. And if it's ready and valuable and all those things, then you can, you can start the process. But if you've, neglected doing what you need to do up until that point, then it's like, maybe now I'm stuck. Now I can't. I want to walk away, but I can't because this thing just isn't valuable or not. It's not going to sell for what I need to get or whatever, right? So that's kind of our message. And there's a lot of things that go into that, and it's a multi-year process, and it's a lot of work, and the plan is only as good as the implementation and all those things, but that's what you got to do if that's what you want to do.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. I feel like I learned a lot, even though I talk to you on a regular basis. I feel like I gained a lot from this podcast. What about you?
I'm like, can I hire you, please? Can you just take over my bacon? Until I get paid, it's going to go straight to you, and you figure out what needs to be done. Because I'm doing it wrong. And now I'm sweating and I have
But you're
anxiety.
young, and so you do have time on your side. You know, you're 24, you still have a lot of time. You know, I think it's harder, like if you were 45 and you're like, I don't have anything saved.
Yeah.
I know someone in my family that is in their mid 50s and they have nothing saved, no plans at all. And that's really scary, because then what? You know, if you do have, you know, something catastrophic happen and you have no savings, or you don't have a plan for retirement. So you have the information now. So you have a good start. So thank you so much, Andrew.
Yes.
Tell everyone how to find you.
Yeah, so our website is atlasfinancialstrategies.com. We have a YouTube page as well. We try to post some educational videos there. It's relatively new, so we only have a couple dozen on there, but we're working on it.
I like it. I say follow Andrew Martin on Facebook, because he gives a tip of the day almost every day. And
I love
find
that.
those really
I do as a
useful.
friend.
Yes, Adam as a friend. And I'm sure we'll have him on again in the future. So thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.